I used to think the creepiest thing about the woods was how quiet they got after midnight. But that was before the whistling. It was our annual fall trip, me, my cousin Tyler, and our friend Joel. We'd done the same loop up in northern Vermont the year before. A 3-day trail that cut through some dense backcountry and circled back to the parking lot near a ranger station that always seemed abandoned. There was a spot we liked, a clearing maybe 9 miles in, deep enough that no one ever stumbled across it. We'd found it by accident the first time, a wide flat basin surrounded by thick trees on all sides and far enough from the water to stay dry. The ground was soft, the view was good, and you felt totally alone. We reached the site at dusk. Built a fire. Cooked freeze-dried chili and passed around a flask Tyler had snuck from his dad. The stars came out early, so many of them it almost felt fake. I remember saying that. "Looks photoshopped," I joked. We stayed up late telling stories. Joel claimed he saw a bobcat once while hiking solo. Tyler told some nonsense about Bigfoot, mostly to mess with me. Eventually, we turned in, the fire dying behind us. Everything felt normal. I woke up sometime later, no idea what time it was. My mouth was dry, and I had that sharp, hyper-aware kind of alertness that usually follows a nightmare. But I couldn't remember dreaming. I just remember the silence. That's what struck me first. No wind, no insects. Even the fire was completely out. Just stillness. And then came the whistling. 2 notes. Sharp. Almost like a bird call, but mechanical. Repeated once. Then again. It wasn't loud, but it didn't feel far away. I sat up listening. Joel stirred beside me in his bag, and Tyler unzipped his tent. "You hear that?" Tyler whispered. The whistle came again. Always the same, one high note, then a slightly lower one. Paused. Repeated. Over and over. We stepped outside our tents, headlamps off. I remember the darkness felt heavier than it should. Like the trees were thicker. Like they were closing in. "Probably just an animal," Joel mumbled, but I could tell he didn't believe it. Neither did I. The sound moved. Same whistle, but now from our left. A few minutes passed. Then it came from behind us. We didn't sleep much that night. By morning, the wind had picked up. We ate in silence, packed quickly, and decided to skip the last leg of the loop. The quickest exit was straight back along the fire road. No one argued. At mile 5, we passed the stream where we'd filled our bottles on the way in. That's where I saw it, a small, deliberate pile of stones stacked almost 4 feet high. "Was that here before?" I asked. "No," Joel said immediately. "No chance." Each stone was flat, placed carefully, balanced. The top one had a long scrape across it, like someone had dragged metal against it. And on the stone below, scratched into the surface with something sharp, were 2 parallel lines, like this. Same pattern as the whistle. None of us spoke for a long time after that. We just kept walking. It was Joel who finally broke the silence. "I don't think we were alone out there. It's been 4 months since the trip, and I still haven't unpacked my backpack. I kept telling myself I'd get around to it, clean out the stove, throw away the last of the trail mix. But every time I opened the closet door and saw that pack sitting there, something in me hesitated. Like if I reached in, I might find something I didn't pack. Something that followed us home. The day after we got back, Tyler called to say he hadn't slept. Joel hadn't either. We all had the same dream. We didn't compare notes at first, just mentioned. Bad sleep, weird night. But the details leaked out over the next week. The dreams were always set in the same place, the clearing, but wrong. Overgrown. Quiet. Fog curling around the trunks of blackened trees. And always, just out of sight, that sound. The 2-note whistle, repeating like it was following a path. In my version, I was lying in my sleeping bag, but I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Just listen. As the whistle circled the tent. Closer. Closer. Until it sounded just outside the nylon. Then silence. I woke up gasping, heart slamming, sweat soaked. It happened 3 times in the first week. Joel said his version ended with the tent unzipping. Tyler stopped answering our calls after day 6. We thought maybe he just needed space. Maybe he was shaken and didn't want to talk about it. But when his sister messaged us, asking if we'd heard from him, we realized something was wrong. She said he hadn't shown up for work. His car was still in the driveway. The landlord said the place was locked from the inside. The cops found nothing, no sign of struggle, no forced entry. Just a mess of camping gear in the middle of the living room. And something else. Joel called me after they searched the place. I remember exactly what he said. They found a pile of stones. I didn't say anything. 4 feet tall. Just like the one by the stream. And guess what was on top? I already knew. A compass. Tyler's compass. The one with the cracked face. They think he went hiking and didn't tell anyone, Joel said. But his boots were still there. A week passed. No sign of him. No new leads. Then came the knocking. It started on a Thursday night. Around 3 a.m. I was awake, too scared to sleep. Reading old Reddit threads about dream symbolism. That's when I heard it. 3 sharp knocks. Not at the door. At my window. I live on the 2nd floor. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just listened. No more knocking. Then the whistle. Same 2 notes. Directly outside. I waited until morning to move. Every curtain stayed closed. I didn't sleep at all. When the sun came up, I walked outside. Circled the house. Nothing. No marks, no prints. But at the base of the tree beneath my window, someone had arranged sticks and leaves in a perfect symbol. I haven't dreamed since. Haven't dared close my eyes without music, podcasts, static, anything to keep the silence out. Joel moved back in with his parents. We don't talk much anymore. Tyler's still missing. Sometimes I hear things, though. On quiet nights. A whistle through the vents. Scratching under the floorboards. My therapist says it's anxiety. That what we went through triggered a shared delusion. But I don't think it was delusion. I think something followed us back. And I don't think it's done with us yet. We weren't supposed to be more than 6 miles in. That's what the map said, an easy trail, just enough to feel remote. We planned to hike out after 2 nights. Me, my friend Kevin, and my younger brother, Alex. We were following an old Forest Service route through Maine's western mountains. The trail hadn't been maintained in years, overgrowth everywhere, half the markers faded to gray. But Kevin had a good sense of direction, and we weren't worried. Not at first. We pitched camp the first night near a creek. Cooked hot dogs. Talked about horror movies. Kevin kept trying to scare Alex with fake bear sounds. Classic Big Brother energy. It was around 1 a.m. when we heard the branches snapping. We froze. No wind. No rustling. Just a clear, deliberate crack. Like a heavy boot on a branch. Kevin killed the lantern. We sat in the dark, listening. Another crack, this time farther off. Then silence. I remember the look on Alex's face, pure tension, like a rubber band stretched to its limit. Probably just a deer, I whispered. But I didn't believe that. By sunrise, everything seemed normal. We ate breakfast and hiked deeper in, aiming for a ridge Kevin had spotted on satellite maps. The trail vanished entirely after the 3rd mile. We had to bushwhack. That's when we found the rope. It was tied between 2 trees like a crude fence, 3 lines of thick cord, maybe 6 feet long, old but intact. And hanging from the top line, right in the middle, was a rusted bell. No clapper inside. Just a hollow shell. Kevin touched it. It didn't ring. Marker? Alex asked. Kevin shook his head. Warning. We kept moving. I wanted to turn back, but no one said anything. By the time we reached the ridge, it was late. We set up camp again, 2 tents, one for me and Alex, one for Kevin. I couldn't sleep. Something about that bell unsettled me. Like it hadn't been there for hikers. Like it wasn't meant to be seen. Around 2 a.m., I had to pee. I unzipped the tent quietly so I wouldn't wake Alex and stepped outside into the cold. That's when I noticed it. There were 3 tents. 1, 2, and another, maybe 30 feet beyond ours, half hidden in the trees. Same size as ours. Dark gray. Nothing fancy. I froze. We hadn't passed anyone. We were miles off trail. No other campsites for a good hour's hike. The third tent was zipped shut. I looked over at Kevin's tent, still there, his silhouette clearly visible in the nylon. I glanced back at ours. Alex still inside. So who the hell was sleeping in the third tent? I didn't go near it. I backed up into our own tent and zipped it tight. Didn't say a word. In the morning, it was gone. Not collapsed, not moved, gone. Like it was never there. I asked Kevin if he'd heard anything during the night. He said no. When I told him what I saw, he went pale. Didn't even argue. I had a weird dream, he said slowly. Thought I saw someone standing at the edge of camp, just watching. I figured I was still half asleep. We both looked at Alex, who was kicking at the fire pit, humming to himself. Maybe we leave today, I said. Kevin nodded. But it was too late. Because when I reached for my bag, there was something tucked into the outer pocket that I didn't remember packing. A small silver bell. No clapper inside. I held the bell in my hand for a long time, waiting for it to feel like a joke. Something Kevin had planted to mess with me. Something Alex had found and stuffed in my pack without realizing. But it didn't feel like a prank. The metal was ice cold, even in the morning sun. No clapper. Just an empty shell, light as air. I turned it over and found a name etched into the base. Nathaniel. That was it. No last name. No date. Do either of you recognize this? I asked, holding it up. Kevin squinted, shook his head. Where'd you get that? It was in my pack. Alex stared at it too long. I had a dream, he said finally. Last night. There was a tent made of skin. Like patched together, with stitching. And it was breathing. Either of us spoke. He wasn't the type of kid to lie. And he definitely wasn't the type to come up with stuff like that. We packed in silence. Left the clearing as fast as we could, not even bothering to eat. The whole way down the ridge, I kept looking over my shoulder. Every branch looked like an arm. Every gust of wind sounded like something moving behind us. At mile 4, we found the second rope. This one was strung between 3 trees, lower to the ground. A fresh knot in the middle, like someone had just finished tying it. No bell this time. Just a scrap of black fabric hanging from the bottom cord. Kevin didn't touch it. We're being herded, he said under his breath. What? I asked. Look around. No underbrush here. We're on a trail. One we didn't find on the map. He was right. The forest floor was cleared in a perfect path, almost surgical. And the air was wrong, dead still, no birds, no rustle of animals. Just the crunch of our boots and Alex's breathing, which had become shallow and erratic. That's when we saw it. The third tent. Again. Just off the path, tucked between 2 trees. Same color. Same size. Zipped shut. We stood frozen. It hadn't been there a second ago. I swear to God, we would have seen it. Kevin stepped forward. We need to check it. No, I said. What if someone's in there? I almost said. Then they deserve to be left behind. But I couldn't get the words out. Kevin approached slowly. Alex clung to my arm. Don't go in, he whispered. Kevin crouched beside the tent, hand reaching for the zipper. Paused. Then he looked back at us. There's no door. We walked over. He was right. No entrance. Just one solid piece of nylon, stretched over poles. That's when the fabric moved, just slightly, like something inside shifted. Not breathing, exactly, but aware. Kevin stepped back. And then came the sound. The bell. From behind us. We spun around. Another tent, identical, now stood behind us on the trail. And another off to the left. 3 tents. None of them ours. The woods began to darken, like a cloud passed over the sun, but there were no clouds. Just trees. Just silence. Just tents. Run, I said. We didn't argue. We ran until our legs gave out. Found the old service road by some miracle. Never looked back. We never went hiking again. Sometimes, though, I wake up to that sound. A soft metallic chime with no rhythm. Just enough to make me check my closet. Last week, I opened it. And there was a tent. Folded neatly. Still damp. It started with a voice none of us recognized. There were 4 of us on that trip, me, Liam, Tara, and Owen. We weren't hardcore outdoorsy people, just a group of college friends trying to unplug before senior year swallowed us whole. We chose a modest site in the Catskills. 2 days. 1 night. Middle of nowhere, but not too nowhere. Just enough to feel disconnected. Liam brought his new gear, one of those ultra-lightweight tents, a bare canister, and for some reason, an old-school digital voice recorder. Said he wanted to document the trip, maybe make a podcast episode for fun. I'll interview everyone. He grinned. Scary stories by the fire. That night, we set up camp in a grove of white birch. The trees there are so thin and pale they almost glow in moonlight. It made the whole clearing look overexposed, like a photo with the contrast maxed out. We built a fire. Passed the recorder around. Laughed too loud. Tara told a ghost story about a girl who lived in a mirror. Owen did his impression of a skinwalker. I told one about a forest ranger who followed his own tracks in a circle for hours, only to learn later the prints weren't his. After the fire died, we climbed into our tents. Liam kept the recorder running. He said he wanted to catch night ambience, owls, wind, whatever. That's when I heard it. I woke up around 3:40. Checked my watch. Everything was still. No crickets, no breeze. Just this thick, motionless silence pressing down on the tent. Then I heard a voice. Muffled. Low. Coming from just outside. At first, I thought it was Liam talking in his sleep. But then I realized the sound was too far from his tent. It wasn't a whisper. It was deliberate. Like someone having a one-sided conversation, slow, clipped, syllables tumbling awkwardly over each other. I didn't unzip the tent. I didn't even move. Just lay there, frozen, praying it was a dream. In the morning, Liam looked like hell. Pale, sunken eyes. I played the recorder back, he said over breakfast. There's something on it. We all gathered around while he hit play. It started normal. Tara's story, Owen's jokes, the crackle of fire. Then the night sounds, wind, footsteps crunching, someone zipping their bag. Then, around the 5-hour mark, came the voice. Faint. Garbled. Male. It said, "Why are you still here?" We all just stared at each other. "That wasn't me," Liam said. "I didn't say that." "No one did," Tara whispered. We replayed it a dozen times. It was always the same. The same inflection, like it was annoyed. Or confused. "Why are you still here?" Then silence. Not static, actual silence. As if the forest itself had stopped breathing. We packed up early. Hiked out in record time. None of us spoke much. But that night, back in my apartment, I got a message from Liam. He sent me an audio clip. Said he'd scrubbed the file, amplified the levels, cleaned the noise. At the end of the recording, right after the voice asked the question, there's something else. Breathing. But not human. Fast. Wet. Like someone gasping through water. Then one more whisper, almost too quiet to catch. It says, "Go back." I didn't sleep that night. Liam went back. I didn't know at first. None of us did. He didn't say anything, didn't text. Just disappeared for a weekend. Then, Monday morning, he sent a voice memo. All it said was, "I figured out where it was coming from." That's it. We tried calling. No response. We went to his dorm. Empty. Campus security said he'd signed out a day pass to take a bus into the mountains. Alone. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the voice. The question. Why are you still here? Like it wasn't meant for us in general, but for him. Specifically. I opened the voice file again. I hadn't listened to it in full since that night in the woods. This time, I wore headphones. Slowed the playback. Boosted the gain. There was more. After the breathing, after the whisper, it wasn't over. It was quiet, but in the background you could hear movement. Wet footsteps. Something dragging. And then, at timestamp 5 hours 42 minutes and 19 seconds, a voice. Liam's. But not from the campfire. Not recorded when he was holding the device. This Liam sounded tired. Like he was in pain. He said, "Stop, don't record this part." And then, something else answered. Not a voice. A hiss. Low, guttural. Almost insect-like. And then the recorder cut to static. I threw my headphones off. 2 hours later, Owen messaged the group chat. Liam's voicemail is gone. Like it never existed. I checked mine. He was right. The memo, his message about figuring it out, had vanished. Even the download link was dead. Tara suggested we go to the police. But what could we say? Our friend disappeared after recording a ghost in the woods. Instead, we went back. I wish we hadn't. We found the old site easily. The birch trees, the clearing, even the rock Owen had sat on was still there. But something was off. No birds. No rustling leaves. The light through the canopy looked dimmer. Like it was filtered through smoke, even though there wasn't any. We found Liam's tent 30 feet off the trail. It had been slashed open. From the inside. Inside were his boots, his jacket, and the voice recorder. Still running. Somehow. I picked it up. The screen glitched, flickering white with black lines crawling through it like cracks. When I pressed play, it jumped back, hours and hours, to a recording I hadn't heard before. Liam was breathing hard. Running, maybe? The mic picked up branches snapping. Then his voice. "It's not a person." A pause. Then more whispers. Dozens. Like a crowd trying to stay quiet. He said, "There's more than one." And then, clearest of all, something else spoke. It said, "We were here before the trees." We ran. Left the tent, the gear, everything. Didn't stop until we saw the ranger station. Banged on the door until someone answered. We told them we'd gotten lost. That we heard something strange. Nothing about Liam. Nothing about the voice. The ranger raised an eyebrow. "You stayed in the birch hollow?" We nodded. "People don't usually go back there," he said slowly. "Used to be a fire watch post there. Burned down in the 60s. 2 rangers died. Never found the third." I asked what happened. The ranger hesitated. "They left a recorder running. Only thing that survived the fire." "What was on it?" I asked. He shrugged. "Don't know. Got sealed up. Some say it still plays. On its own." That night, I got a new message. An audio file. No sender. Just Liam's voice. He whispered, "Why didn't you listen?" And then the same dragging footsteps, coming closer. I was 12 when it happened, but I still remember every detail like it's pressed under glass. My Uncle Joe used to take me camping every summer. Just the two of us. He was a quiet guy, not the type to talk much, but I liked that. We'd fish, build fires, talk about weather and baseball. No heavy stuff. That summer, we went to a state forest in upstate New York. Not a popular one, no rangers, no map sites. Just a gravel road that bled into dirt, and a lake you could barely find on a map. He called it our spot. We arrived late afternoon. The sun was low, golden, bleeding through the trees. Uncle Joe parked the truck, and we hiked in about half a mile, cutting through brush until we found the clearing. I remember how the air changed as we entered it. It was quiet, too quiet. Even the birds avoided it. The trees bent outward like they didn't want to be part of it. Uncle Joe paused. He didn't say anything, but I noticed him looking around more than usual. He was normally laid back, but that day, he kept glancing over his shoulder like he was tracking something. The hollow was maybe 40 feet wide, ringed with thin trees that leaned outward, away from the center. It wasn't just empty, it was sterile. No leaves on the ground. No moss. Just smooth dirt. "Why is the ground like that?" I asked. He just said, "Don't wander too far. Stay close." That night, we built a fire in the center. Ate beans straight from the can. I fell asleep early, but something woke me around 2 a.m. No sound. Not even the fire crackling. Just this unnatural, dense silence. The kind that makes you feel like you're underwater. I sat up in the tent and realized Uncle Joe wasn't inside. I peeked out. He was standing at the edge of the hollow. Perfectly still. Staring into the woods. I whispered, "Uncle Joe?" He didn't turn around. I stepped out. My feet made no sound on the dirt, even though I was sure I was stepping on twigs. It was like everything in the clearing swallowed sound. I reached him and gently touched his arm. That's when I noticed his eyes. Wide open. Not blinking. His lips were moving barely. Like he was whispering something, but no sound came out. Then he turned his head just slightly and whispered, like it was a secret between us. "They don't want us here." I asked him what he meant. But he just repeated softer. "They don't want us here." Then he walked back to the tent like nothing had happened. In the morning, he acted like everything was normal. Made oatmeal. Asked if I slept okay. I brought up the night before. He frowned. "You must have dreamed it." But I didn't dream it. Because when I walked to the edge of the clearing, right where he'd been standing, there were 2 sets of footprints in the dirt. His. And one other set. Barefoot. Small. Only going one direction. Toward our tent. I never forgot those prints. They weren't made by boots or sneakers, just small, bare feet. Toes spread wide, like whoever made them had never worn shoes. The strange part? The tracks only came toward the tent. There were none going back. I followed them to the tent flap. They stopped inches from where I'd slept. I didn't tell Uncle Joe. I was afraid of what he'd say, or what he wouldn't. We packed up later that morning. Joe seemed off. Jumpy. Like something was tugging at him from the edges of his thoughts. As we walked back to the truck, I noticed he kept looking over his shoulder. When we got home, he never brought up the trip again. Not once. No pictures. No retelling of fish that got away. That was the last time we went camping. Years passed. I grew up. Joe moved south for work. We didn't talk much anymore. Then, last spring, I got a call from my mom. "Joe's missing," she said. "They found his truck off a fire road near Catskill Forest." My stomach dropped. I already knew where. I drove up the next day. The search team was small, 2 local officers and a volunteer with a bloodhound. They let me ride along when I told them I knew the woods. His truck was parked exactly like I remembered, just off the gravel path. Still clean, like it had just rolled in. Inside was his phone, wallet, and a voice recorder. Same kind of old dictaphone he used to keep fishing logs on. I took it. Didn't tell anyone. That night, in the motel, I pressed play. The first 5 minutes were him walking, narrating trails and trees. It was peaceful. Familiar. Then the tone shifted. He said, "I'm almost there. Can feel it. Same pressure in my chest." Then silence for a long while. Just footsteps. Then barely audible. Still hollow. Still wrong. He must have been in the clearing. The recording clicked, then picked up a new sound, faint and wet. Breathing, but not human. More like something dragging wet towels across tile. Then came the whisper. "Why are you back?" I dropped the recorder. It kept playing. Joe whispered, "I came to understand. I need to remember." Another voice answered, deeper and distorted. Then lie down. What followed was hard to explain. The recorder didn't pick up words, just a long moan, drawn out like wind through a tunnel. And then, something like a heartbeat. Slow. Heavy. Ground shaking. Then static. I shut it off. I couldn't sleep that night. Kept seeing those bare footprints. Kept hearing that voice. In the morning, I made a choice. Drove back out there. Followed the same overgrown path we'd taken all those years ago. When I found the clearing, it hadn't changed. Still too quiet. Still sterile. Trees still arched away like they feared the place. In the center was a small shape. I thought it was a rock at first. But as I got closer, I realized what it was. The voice recorder. Just sitting there. No prints around it. No sign of Joe. I picked it up. Press play. His voice again. Calm. They let me see it. Then a pause. They're not from here. Another pause. They were before here. Static. Then silence. I turned to leave. That's when I noticed something new, carved into a tree at the edge of the clearing. A simple outline of a foot. 5 toes. Wide heel. And underneath it the words. You brought them back. We called it Echo Camp, but no one really knew why. It was just a clearing, moss-covered, ringed with fir trees, tucked deep in the Adirondacks. A 10-mile hike in. No signs. No trails. You only found it if someone showed you. It was tradition for our group, 4 of us from high school who met up once a year to get drunk, roast marshmallows, and talk about who screwed up their life the most. This year was our 5th trip. It was also the last. The hike-in was normal. Jokes, trail mix, bitching about the bugs. The woods were quiet. Too quiet, in retrospect. We set up our tents before sundown and built a fire. Tucker brought bourbon. Jamie brought weed. Chris, as usual, brought nothing but his sarcasm. By 11 p.m., we were toasted. Laughing so hard it hurt. That's when Tucker asked the question. Remember the story? He said. The one about the guy who vanished here? Jamie rolled his eyes. You mean the ranger? No, Tucker said. Not the ranger. The other guy. The one who heard himself calling from the woods. Chris chuckled. Right. The guy who followed his own voice. No, Tucker said again, dead serious now. That was the thing. It wasn't his voice. Not really. Just close enough. I remember the way he looked at us, like he was testing something. We laughed it off. But I couldn't stop thinking about it as I lay in my tent. Around 2 a.m., I woke up needing to pee. The woods were dead silent. Even the fire had gone out. I stepped out, flashlight in hand, and walked maybe 20 feet from camp. That's when I heard it. Someone calling my name. Eli? It came from deeper in the trees, just beyond the firelight. Sounded like Jamie at first. But too slow. Too even. Eli, come here. I froze. Then again. Eli, it's okay. But this time it was my voice. Not similar, exact. Same tone. Same speech pattern. Like someone had recorded me and played it back slightly warped. I backed away, heart hammering. The voice repeated, Eli, come here. Then silence. I rushed back to the tents. Everyone was asleep. I shook Jamie awake. What? He grunted. Did you call me? No, man. Go to sleep. I didn't. The next morning, I told them what I heard. Chris joked that I was stoned. Tucker, though, looked pale. You heard it? He asked quietly. Jamie snorted. Oh, here we go. But Tucker didn't smile. You weren't the first. What do you mean? I've heard it too, he said. 2 years ago. Same voice. Same thing. It knew my name. Chris frowned. And you waited 2 years to tell us? I didn't want to believe it. We argued for an hour. Jamie wanted to leave. Chris said we were overreacting. But I noticed something strange as we packed up. There were 5 sets of footprints. Not 4. One led in a wide arc behind the tents. The boots were worn flat, almost bare. No heel. Like someone had walked the same trail over and over. Then I saw something else. A sock. Just one, half buried under a log. Too big to be any of ours. Damp. Still warm. Tucker bent down and picked it up. "Smell that," he said. I did. It smelled like me. We left that afternoon, earlier than planned. Nobody said it out loud, but we all felt it. Something was wrong. Like we'd stepped off the trail into someplace that wasn't meant to be found. Tucker burned the sock before we left. It let off this sickly sweet smell, like melting plastic. Chris made a joke about it being haunted foot fungus, but nobody laughed. The hike back took longer than it should have. We kept getting turned around, even though we were following GPS paths we'd taken just the day before seemed to shift under our feet. The trees looked wrong, leaning in, narrowing the trail. It was Jamie who first noticed the voice again. "Did you hear that?" he said, stopping cold. We all listened. A soft echo in the trees. "Chris." It was faint. Barely above the wind. But clear. Someone saying Chris's name. "Chris, come here." He turned pale. "Okay, very funny." But it wasn't funny. Because the voice came again, this time louder, and it wasn't any of us. "Chris," it said. "Help me." It was his voice. Chris bolted. Ran down the trail, yelling that we were messing with him. We shouted after him. Tried to follow. But within a minute, he was gone. Gone like he'd dropped off the edge of the earth. We spent an hour searching. No sign of him. No tracks. No sound. Eventually, we had no choice but to keep moving. The sun was dipping fast, and we weren't about to be caught in those woods at night. But the voices didn't stop. They followed us the whole way out. Jamie. Eli. Tucker. Each one perfect. Familiar. But slightly wrong. The cadence off. The vowels drawn too long. Like the voices had learned how to speak, but hadn't yet learned how to be. When we finally reached the trailhead, the light broke through the trees like salvation. I swear the moment my foot hit gravel, the pressure in my head lifted. Like something invisible had been holding its breath the whole time. We drove home in silence. Chris was never found. That was a year ago. None of us talk much anymore. Jamie moved across the country. Tucker deleted all his socials. I stayed, but I haven't been back in the woods since. Until last week. It was 2:13 a.m. when I got the voicemail. 30 seconds long. I didn't recognize the number. I hit play. At first, just static. Then a voice. Familiar. Eli. It was Chris. Eli, it's okay. I found a way out. His tone was calm. Too calm. Like someone reading off a card. Then something else came through. Not his voice. Not human. A deep clicking sound, like bones snapping underwater. Followed by soft, wet breathing. Then Chris again. Come back. Please. We're waiting. Click. That night I had a dream. I was back at Echo Camp. Only now the trees were gone. Just bare ground. In the center was a shape, something like a person, but not quite. Too long. Too still. Its arms bent the wrong way. It turned slowly. Smiled with a mouth I didn't recognize. And in my voice it said, "You left me here." I woke up choking on air. My phone screen was lit. A new message. This one had no audio. Just a transcript. Eli. Come here. It's okay.